Welcome to Big Fiction Energy.
Oh, hi there. Welcome back.
The biggest fiction energy that you can have
Legally.
Yeah.
Legally, without infringing on our title.
It is a supplement, though, so it is not regulated by the FDA.
Sweet. We get around a lot with that.
Herbal supplements. Always consult your doctor first before starting any kind of new regimen.
I wouldn't with this one. I would just send it out, personally.
Just send it. Welcome to episode 6. Thanks for sticking with us this long. This is chapter 6, because that's how this podcast works. This chapter is called Sparring. Sparingly use our supplement.
Like the top of the food pyramid.
Right, just sprinkle. What was it when we were kids? There, right? The little circles and triangles were like fats and were like sugars and something. Salt and sugar. That's what it was.
All the good stuff that you get addicted to.
Yeah. Sugar. What's that?
Unless you take your recommended daily dose of Big Fiction Energy.
Right. And then you won't have any room for any of that other stuff.
Correct. You'll be too full from its girth.
I was waiting for you to say that.
It's a very girthy supplement.
Oh, man.
Before we jump into chapter 6, welcome once again.
What's your name?
I was just going to do that.
Oh.
We've got notes this time to help us remember. So I'm Dan, the author, creator, mastermind, evil genius.
I am Danny. I keep track of the details for the author, mastermind.
Evil genius.
Evil genius.
Forgot that part.
Evil.
Yes, that's totally true.
Yeah.
And I'm Tim.
just Tim.
He's
barely.
He's just happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
So, being episode 6, chapter 6, if this is the first one you're listening to, if you're jumping on at this point, go back to episode 1. This is a audio book podcast, so if this is your first episode, stop now, go back to chapter 1 and listen to it from the beginning. You'll be glad you did, because it won't make any sense probably otherwise.
Actually, I did see in the comments from XX_ Blood Angel Fire XX_ that the correct listening order is to start with episode 3.
Oh.
To go then back to the second half of chapter 2, then go to 1, then 4, then 5, then this episode, and then the first half of chapter 2.
Right.
What is this, The Witcher, where you have to look up the order to read them in?
Yeah,
it's all over the place.
different timelines.
And it's like we're Tarantinoing right now.
Correct.
If you watch
we are
it
not
that
tipping
way.
Waitresses.
Oh, that's such a good scene.
And we also have something about feet in every movie.
One of my students told me he has a foot fetish.
Yeah, he has a big foot thing.
I've never noticed that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, big time foot fetish.
I'll go back and watch all the Quentin Tarantino movies, except for Inglourious Bastards.
I'm sure if
I don't like
you
that
were
one.
to go on the World Wide Web.
Oh, the internets.
You could probably just find a compilation.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome to chapter 6. We'll be back with you after we listen. Chapter 6, Sparring.
This stuff is never coming off.
Lani complained as she tried scrubbing the gray-green pigment from her exposed arms. The two had found a small stream down a short hill into the forest just outside the shanty town. They were busy trying to ditch their disguises. Lani had stripped all the rags and strange armor off and looked mostly like the young woman she was. Brutus had removed the more garish pieces of kit he was wearing to look more like a bounty hunter, but kept some of the practical armor that Jork had given him. Lani was scrubbing her arm with a rough stone, trying to get her olive skin to show through the paint. Just keep working at it. It might take a few days to wear off, but we'll be busy, so probably not too long.
Days? I can't be green for days.
Well, why does it matter? You heard Cass. We have a job already.
I just can't, okay? This is crazy. People might really think I'm an ogre.
Nah, you weren't scary enough. We're just lucky no one got a good look at you. Cass saw right through it.
Ugh, you're right. As usual. How does she do that?
Well, people out here are much more observant than those in the city. They have to be to survive. Cass seems like good people. I'm willing to try out the mercenary thing, guard the van, as she said. If you are, seems like our best bet. Lani didn't answer for a minute. She kept scrubbing her arm. Brutus was just about to repeat himself when Lani blurted out,
Yes, let's do it. She seems like our best bet.
She? Brutus raised his eyebrows in surprise.
I mean the caravan. It's a good plan. Shut up.
Lani turned away from Brutus, but not before he saw her cheeks flush red.
What should I do with this stuff?
Lani asked quickly, changing the subject. She wove her arm over all the parts of her discarded costume. We don't need it anymore, but shouldn't just leave it here. I'll gather it up and take it to market, see if I can't get some coin for it.
Okay, I'll keep scrubbing my skin off.
Good luck. I'll be back soon.
Oh, see if you can trade for food. I'm starving.
Yes, your majesty. Brutus stomped back up the hill to the market. Lani sat at the edge of the stream and scrubbed her arm. She thought about how things were moving so fast. At this time yesterday, she was sitting in her classroom. Now she's by a stream, on a rock. Surrounded by, what were they again? Trees? Lani stood and looked over at the tree closest to her. It was an amazing thing. In Gaul, there were hardly any living things besides the citizens. Lani had never seen a tree before in her life. She tentatively held out a hand and touched the bark. It was rough, but not hard. She felt it for a minute. Something told her to close her eyes, and she did, feeling the tree on her palm, the light breeze in her short hair. She felt something on her hand, a pulsing. She could feel the tree was a living thing, not like her or Brutus, altogether different, but alive. She opened her eyes and took her hand away. The tips of her index and middle finger were sticky with something from the tree. Lani smiled and shrugged, and sat back on the rock and continued scrubbing away the paint, happier than she had been in a long time.
Ah, good. I was worried you wouldn't show.
The girl held up her arms in greeting, then turned to show Lani and Brutus what they were working with. Lani was quietly impressed with the setup the caravan had. The main vehicle was a floating barge that hovered about half a meter off the ground. The vehicle itself was massive, at least 5 meters long and 3 high. Its walls were made of navy-colored material Lani couldn't place. The back of the vehicle had a sealed door, all the walls solid. Along the sides were scrolled intricate gold filigree in a delightful pattern, making the whole thing look out of place in the forest. The floating box was attached to a team of 4 joreys, large beasts of burden with huge horns that looped around the creature's shoulders and back out, great for protection and fighting. The joreys were quietly munching on something in feed sacks, and Brutus pet one and touched their horns as they passed. Lani almost made a joke about the joreys being relatives of Brutus's, but she held it back, seeing how in awe he was.
This is our pride and joy.
Cass was saying as they walked along the van.
And that's just what she's called, the Pride and Joy. It's a bit of an older model, but the floatstones still work, though we don't know how much longer until we'll need to pay for replacement spells. Spells? Yeah, like magic. Not like real magic, though, more like we can't quite explain it, so we call it magic. As long as the van makes it to Frank, we should be alright to get some spells cast and keep it floating for a while longer. This trip will more than pay for it.
Lani looked back at Brutus with her eyebrows raised this time. She slowed her pace to walk beside Brutus.
She seems pretty open with the info, don't you think?
Yeah, guess she feels pretty comfortable with us already. She's a good bet. Lani scowled at him, but the Minotaur noticed her cheeks flushed red again, and she quickened her pace to rejoin Cass. Brutus looked at Lani's reaction, then his eyes flicked to Cass, then back to Lani. He smiled and nodded his head knowingly.
These other carts, they ain't so fancy. They're what'll slow us down, Amy.
Cass led the group past a few smaller carriages with large rubber wheels, each drawn by 2 more joreys. These carts were half the size of the Pride and Joy and clearly constructed of wood, with canvas covering the tops and rear.
These belong to others that are pooling resources to make the trip safer. Ah, here's Da. You can call him Dasta, though.
Cass pointed to a thin man. He was small, though not as small as Lani or even Cass. He had the same dark features as his daughter and the same unruly hair. His dark arms were bare and knotted with muscle. When Dasta turned to Cass and her guests, he smiled, showing bright white teeth that shone white as polished pearls in his short black beard.
Ah, so you made it. Cass was talking you up, but I didn't think you'd actually show. Boy, you are a big lug.
Dasta stepped forward and slapped Brutus on the chest playfully.
And my lady from the city.
Dasta turned to Lani, took her hand and kissed the back of it. Lani hardly had time to react to the strange man and let it happen.
Cass told me you were easy on the eyes, but I never...
Da!
Cass's face flushed.
I said she looked like she was in good shape. Could be a good help. I'm going to check on the Pride.
Cass hurried away. Lani looked at Brutus again, who was smiling. She wasn't sure what was going on, but everyone was acting strange around her suddenly, and she was getting a bit uncomfortable.
Apologies, I jest. She is just so much fun to tease. She did say she thought you two would be a help, though. Tell me, do you know how to fight?
Brutus nodded. I have attained the rank of Harbinger in the art of Kuri. I have trained Lani since she was 4.
Kuri, huh? That's an old art. Usually only primals still know it. I hope I won't get a chance for you to use it. You'll have to show me some night.
I'd be honored to express my art. Lani is quite accomplished as well. She is obviously much more nimble than I, so she has surpassed me in some areas.
I have?
Lani beamed at Brutus. Brutus merely nodded, but kept his eyes on Dasta. Unfortunately, she does not hold a rank. She was never able to test. As you said, only primals typically practice this art. Personally, I would appoint her at waxing rank, one below Harbinger. Lady couldn't hide her smile as Dasta mused over what Brutus said. Lani had no idea Brutus held her abilities in such high regard. She found it unfortunate, but always understood why she couldn't be formally tested. Her parents would never allow such a thing. Being inhuman got in the way of quite a bit.
Good. Well, I'm not in the mood to test your boosts. You look like you're telling truth, though. I'll have you positioned on the north side of the Pride. You are to keep anything and everything that isn't traveling already with us away from the van.
You got it.
We will do as you ask.
Great! Then we have an agreement. It should take us 2 weeks to travel to Frank. Cass says that you're then going on to Dran. That should only take you a few more days. I'll pay you your standard fare when we arrive, and a bonus for any skirmishes we come out on top from.
Dasta shot his hand out, and Brutus took it and shook it heartily. Dasta then extended his hand towards Lani, and she looked at it.
Plus 20%.
Excuse me?
Dasta took his hand away slowly, looking Lani up and down.
Well, Brutus is a rare sight. A minotaur his size, even in the city or the dregs, I've never seen a minotaur like him. He's as big as a full-grown orc. Also, he's well-trained in an exotic martial art, as am I. Plus, I'm way stronger and tougher than I look.
Brutus nodded at that.
We're worth way more than 2 typical mercenaries, so we deserve 20% more.
Dasta looked at Lani for a long time. Lani started to think she had gone too far. Dasta looked at Brutus, sizing him up.
Show me, now.
Dasta said to the two of them. Brutus immediately drew and hefted his shock baton, but did not activate it, to Lani's relief. Lani leapt back, getting into a low stance and drawing her long-bladed tanto. Dasta stepped back as the others began forming a circle around the two to watch. Lani studied Brutus, trying to guess how he was going to strike first. Kuri was a very aggressive martial art designed to get into your opponent's guard and overwhelm them with attacks. As an aggressive person already, and having a very short reach, this style was a natural fit for Lani. Brutus struck first, a heavy overhand swing that Lani was easily able to dodge. Her step to the left was what Brutus expected, and his huge fist connected hard with Lani's jaw, knocking her to the ground. She recovered immediately, kicking herself off the ground, spinning her legs in a wild arc to keep Brutus at bay until she regained her feet. Lani used the opportunity and momentum to launch herself at Brutus, getting close enough to render his weapon nearly useless. She spun behind the Minotaur, leapt up and butted the side of his head with her dagger hilt. Against a human, the strike would have staggered her opponent, but Brutus had a thick skull and the hit barely registered. He swung his arms in a wide arc, forcing Lani to duck. Brutus kept up the barrage of punches and elbows, keeping his baton out of the fight for now. A direct hit from the weapon, even deactivated, could seriously hurt Lani. Lani staggered back, forcing Brutus's blows away from her body and dodging the others. She knew from countless sparring sessions that Brutus could only keep this up for so long, a sheen of sweat already forming on his bull head. The few times Lani saw Brutus actually fight ended quickly and decisively, with Brutus dispatching his opponent with 1 or 2 powerful blows from his baton. Lani knew she couldn't take another hit like she took to her jaw. She had been scolding herself for her misstep from the beginning. She could wait it out, though, let Brutus wear himself out and then finish him off, claiming victory. Brutus caught Lani off guard again, and she danced away from his swings, setting up a guarded position a few meters away. The big primal knew what Lani was doing. It wasn't like she hadn't done it before. She was much faster than him, and he knew she was hard to hit. She would get a few hits back, but even as strong as she was, it would take a lot to bring him down. As he caught his breath, he wondered which way the fight should go. Obviously, Dasta needed to be impressed, but would he be surprised at all if the large Minotaur won against a small young girl? At the same time, was Dasta learned in the martial arts enough to know if one fighter was letting the other win? Brutus made up his mind. Lani waited, glad for a chance to catch her breath as well. What was Brutus doing besides getting some oxygen? He must be trying to decide which way this fight should go, she thought. She reversed her grip on the dagger, ready to end it if needs be. She had devised a hard counter to one of Brutus's favorite attacks, but had yet a chance to attempt it. She knew it was risky, but if it worked, she would finally best him in a sparring match, a feat she had yet been able to accomplish. If it didn't work, though, she knew she would feel it for a week. Brutus broke Lani's reverie with a stomp and a snort. While not a Kuri technique, she knew it was more of a Minotaur instinct to let an opponent know the fight was back on. Brutus lowered his head and charged at the girl. His long, curved horns made this much more frightening tactic than it should be, as his body was designed to deliver this blow with an amazing amount of power. Lani knew she could dodge out of the way easy enough, but Brutus's horns were far from his only weapons. She had tried dodging in the past, and she always ended flat on her back, with a huge bruise on an arm or shoulder from his baton flashing out at the last second. She knew it was time to try her idea. She stood her ground as Brutus trampled the few yards between them. Even in the short space between them, his powerful legs could build up an astonishing amount of speed and momentum. Lani waited until Brutus was just about on top of her. His eyes went wide, sensing what she was about to try. Lani leapt at the last possible second, grabbing onto Brutus's left horn, using his size and momentum against him. She swung up, taking advantage of her small stature, and landed on Brutus's back. She yanked on his horn to throw him off balance, and he fell to the ground hard, his impetus impossible to stop. The crowd around them had to quickly scuttle out of the way or be gored by Brutus's horns. Lani stayed on his back and flicked her dagger down to Brutus's throat. She had no intention of actually cutting him, but it symbolized her victory, showing that she had all the power currently in the fight. Lani and Brutus were breathing hard when they heard the slow clap.
Very well done. I'll give you an extra 50% for that show. Marauders and bandits will think twice before they see you two as guards.
The man walked over to help the two up. Brutus was panting and sweating profusely, but he had an enormous smile on his face. He clapped Lani on the back. She winced and realized even that first punch he was holding back. Yes, well done. That was a new move at the end. Not cool-ree. I wasn't expecting that.
I thought of it a while ago, but hadn't gotten to try it yet. I got lucky. If I had missed, I would have been paced.
Well, we all know you have no fear. I'm not surprised you could try something so risky. Not surprised with hindsight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that scene was awesome.
I think it was pretty cool.
Lani's a monster. A tiny little teenage monster.
She's a dervish.
Yeah, as we've already learned, if someone just calls her a kind of mean name, she'll cut their face. So
She will cut a person.
obviously she's capable of significantly more than that, and she is very good at keeping it in check.
I mean,
Thankfully, Brutus did not call her a kind of mean name.
yeah, I mean, it's a character flaw, right? She's got a short temper.
Weird.
Too bad this isn't videos. You see the look I'm getting right now. I'm not really sure what that's about.
I can relate. I understand her. No, I love that scene. I love the display of, like, power and them, you know, bargaining to get more of what they thought that they were worth, which is amazing, and more people should do that, I think.
An extra 50% is not a small amount.
Yeah, because then she asked for 20, and then he was like, all right, I'll give you 50, because that was pretty awesome,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think really importantly, if you want to take a lesson home, is if you are going in from the position of an employee and you want to negotiate a higher salary, bring a Minotaur and fight him
And
in
win.
front of your boss and win.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the key. Win.
And you could, do considerably well.
Yeah.
Now the key.
Or was they just super lowballing them in the beginning, and 50% extra is like, oh, you're making,
I mean, Lani has no idea how much the money out there is worth. Brutus probably doesn't
True.
either.
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
I like to think that Dast is a fair enough person that he would give them something reasonable for their
He
services.
sounds like a reasonable person. But then again, also on a whim, he'll also increase people's income by 50%. So it doesn't seem like he's a reasonable person. It
Yeah.
seems like maybe he's unreasonable.
He
very
might
jovial.
be a little impetuous, but reasonably impetuous.
I don't like peaches at all. Do they have peaches in this universe?
Millions of peaches.
Oh, peaches for me?
No,
Oh,
But they're
you're not
free.
in that universe.
oh, gotcha.
Those peaches are free.
Yeah, they are. Maybe at some point they'll find some peaches.
That'd be great. Is that going to happen? All right, those are the top two things now. What happened to Jork's orc spine? And where
head spine.
Where are the peaches?
Where are the
that?
peaches? And what about the bodes?
Well, we
Well.
will get there.
Yeah. That's going to take longer than just an episode outro to talk about.
It's a deep, painful topic for some of us.
Yeah.
That's probably how they get the They don't have boats, so they
You should have seen the
can't.
look on his face or something. Just
They
that
can't
light
get the
bulb.
peaches shipped in. It's one and the same. There's probably other places that have both abodes and peaches to transport.
Do you think maybe peaches don't grow on this particular continent?
Right. So they gotta get them in by abode. But there's no
there
abodes
are no
in the
bodes.
dregs.
Correct.
Yeah.
So obviously there's other places that have
man.
both bodes and peaches.
Ooh, that's
Imagine
interesting.
living in
Well,
a place with no bodes and no peaches.
Sounds like-
Devastating.
Right,
Sounds
just
like
one
a
of those
sad
makes
story.
me, feel like I'm living in the dregs, but to have both. Why even bother fear-mongering? Why bother having the mongers when you've oppressed your people without bodes and peaches? Peaches and bodes.
Peaches and boats.
I don't know about listeners here, but I'm pretty lost at this point.
Oh, yeah, me too. Because we didn't have a boat to bring us to where we were going to go.
So before we move on to next topic, I wanted to ask you, Dan, about the construction of the caravan that Lani and Brutus are helping to
The construction of.
like, you have some description of it in the chapter. Where did you get that inspiration? Like, it's not just your typical, like, Oregon Trail, die of dysentery, covered wagon deal.
Well, that's kind of the influence for it. Definitely Oregon Trail.
Which also didn't have boats.
No.
Right.
Because you had to
When you ford those rivers,
You
and
have
you
to
just
fjord the river.
died.
I never played Oregon Trail. I never have.
What?
Yep.
And you're an educator?
I know. It's crazy.
Where did it get
That's
bit?
up.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yep.
But no, it's definitely influenced by that idea of like the pioneers traveling across the country, in caravans for safety numbers and all that. Also, partly inspired by, I mentioned before, I wanted to make the story similar to like an like a JRPG where you collect your party throughout or at least the first part of the adventure, then you add people on. But also the idea in like D&D games where often your party has to escort a caravan
Right.
to go from one place to another to kind of give you something to do while you're going from A to B, and to give them a reason to care about what they're doing. So it was kind of influenced by those
That's
types of
actually why
things.
they call it a caravan.
Yeah,
'Cause
because
they care.
about
Right.
But as for the pride and joy, I just wanted to make it something different in that case. The other ones are more like covered wagons. I said they have rubber wheels, though, instead of big spoked wooden wheels, because it is... Some of it's kind of futuristic, but the pride and joy has those float stones that
Yeah.
allow it to just kind of hover over the ground, which I think is pretty cool.
I have a physics question for you.
Oh, no. I had a rough time in physics.
Oh, he swore a lot during physics.
Oh, physics homework, yelling at the computer. Whew.
If you were to go under something that is elevated by float stones,
Yeah.
will the pressure crush you?
I don't see it as like anti-gravity engines or like magnetic. It's magic. Like Cass says it's not magic, but she doesn't really know. Like it's magic.
Okay.
So like
So
there
it-
isn't like a
so it
force
magically
pushing
crushes
down from the bottom of the thing to keep it aloft. It's just floating.
Would it be like hanging out like behind a microwave? Like it's not really doing anything to you, but like long term, if you were a stowaway under a float stone caravan, you would get like extra pinkies on your chin or something.
I would actually. I like that question because I think that idea that if you do it long enough term, I'm sure it would increase your chance of ogroidism.
Oh, specifically ogroidism. Okay,
Oh.
I could see that.
I could also see that. Ogroidism 19.
Hey, you said it correctly that time.
That took a lot of effort.
that was quite the pause there.
I do like how, we've left the city and we're in the
The wilds.
wilds, and there's still a little bit of tech. It's not all totally like
Yes.
night and day.
Right.
which
Yeah,
is
the little kind of remnants of it, but for the most part in the wilds, like, we'll see as we go on how low tech it is. But there's still vestiges of it here and there, like the float stones, rubber wheels, things like that.
Yeah.
Here and there.
Will their data slates and things like that still have information connection? Or will they be
I
service?
imagine that Brutus wouldn't have brought anything like that, because in case somebody just used their, like, Find My Digislate
Oh, yeah.
app.
Dang, they'll be pinging
Something
all over
like
the
that.
place.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't want to get pinged. So I imagine that he left anything like that behind. That and just he would have known that out in the wilds would have been lower tech, and that really would have stood out and been like something that they probably would have gotten trying to say robbed and mugged at the same time, and it kept coming out rugged.
Yeah. Rogged. I
You're
think
gonna
is
Something
get
they
rocked.
could have gotten. Something they could have easily been mugged for, and he didn't want to have to deal with that.
fair.
And it was something that he figured wouldn't work out there after a while anyway. Once it loses its charge, There's nowhere to plug it in the woods, so.
They don't have solar magic? Or magic?
I mean, that wasn't something he would know, he was able to find out about for sure or not, so I imagine he didn't bring any of that stuff.
Well, why did Lenore pay for Brutus to get an engineering degree if he doesn't know how to create solar cells
What? Where?
to charge their...
When did he get an engineering degree?
Listen, I don't know if you read the fan fiction for
Oh, no.
for this series, but there's a lot. So, and if you could, just kind of read it all and then tell us what's canon and what's not, because you know what I mean?
I mean, canon is this podcast. That's the only thing that's canon.
Gotcha.
And the blog.
Yeah, and the blog.
Right.
I'm not trying to think if there's anything. There's a few extra things in the blog, but yeah. That's it. You check out dancoleauthor.com. The blog comes out every other Thursday opposite the podcast. And you can get more information there. While we're kind of talking about that stuff, we'll talk other places you can follow us. Big Fiction Energy. Obviously, you're listening to it now, but we're also on YouTube now as a possible source of entertainment.
And that would be youtube.com/
Big Fiction Energy is the channel.
Oh.
Man, that's super easy to remember.
Yeah.
I take a supplement that's also named that.
It's just easier if I don't have to remember two things.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
Also, Facebook. You do facebook.com/dancoleauthor. And then Twitter. You can follow me at icedan_HDH. I think I'm also on Instagram. I think I got like one post at this point.
You are on
That's something that
Instagram,
I'm working on,
Yeah.
figuring out how to use Instagram as an author, which is just, I think it's just Dan Cole. I'll have to double check that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Danny said before we go to the next topic, I do want to do one little shout out. Thanks to Sirenscape, is a program app I use for the sound effects and magic. Magic. I got distracted. The dog was trying to lick Tim, and it's just funny. Just the face he's making, like, pay attention to me.
Rocco is a very needy old man.
For the sound effects and music was the word I was looking for. I don't know why I said magic.
We also wanted to send a quick shout out to Doctors Foster and Smith, America's foremost authority on pet care. You can check out them online at doctorsfostersmith.com.
And they are known for their quality pet products.
They are known. Some might say they're America's foremost authority on pet care.
Not third most.
Nope.
Foremost.
Right.
Yes.
Wow. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Oh,
Appreciate that.
Shall we wrap this up?
I don't know. We don't have to.
Thanks for listening, friends. Thanks for coming to hang out.
Yeah. Come back in 2 weeks. Every other Thursday, we'll be here. Check us out. Whatever your favorite mode of podcasting is.
Yeah, however you want us to get in your ears. Just Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Used Q-tips.
Even
hanging outside, out of the window. when you're
iHeartRadio.
recording, so
Yeah.
that you can get the real inside scoop.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't forget, if you do listen, obviously you do, and you like it, rate, review, subscribe. Tell
Yes,
your friends.
please.
Tell your mom.
word of mouth is a big deal for things like this.
Yeah.
Let everybody know. Just, shove that URL down their throat and say, hey, listen to this.
Yeah. Don't take no for an answer.
All right, so rock on Chicago, rock on London. I had a slogan in my head and then I lost it.
LaCroix, it's a joy.
Hey.